What's going on, everybody? We are back again. What You Scared to Say podcast, episode 39. And guys, I have two special guests with us. I have Andy Meehan and Andy Teitelman. Y'all want to say hello to the people?
Hello, everybody out there.
Thanks for having us, Alante.
Listen, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. And today, guys, I have, for the first time, me doing politics, I have a new co-host. And Selma, you want to say hello to everybody?
Hi, everyone. Selma here. It's a pleasure to be back on the What You Scared to Say podcast now as a co-host. Thank you, Alante, for this opportunity. Today is going to be a fun episode full of juicy details, exposing corruption, and showing you guys that being woke is not the same as being awake.
That's wonderful. That's awesome. Guys, before we get started, I need everybody at home to like, subscribe, and share. It's very important. We're still trying to grow. We're doing great numbers on social media, but, you know, we can always pick it up a little bit. So please like, subscribe, and share. And so, Mr. Andy Meehan, could you please give us, you have a special introduction before I, guys, introduce you, we just properly, let's just get this intro going and, get everybody at home all
Sounds
revved
good.
up.
God bless America.
Yes, sir.
Oh,
That made me want to run through a brick wall right there. I love that. It never gets old. So, guys, let me introduce the two men that we have right here today. You guys want to know who these people are, right? So, Andy Meehan is a businessman from Bucks County, an independent financial advisor, husband, father of three, a lifelong Delaware Valley resident. Andy's grandfather, Austin Meehan, and his son and grandson ran the Philly GOP for almost all of the 20th century and much of the current century. Andy got into politics in 2019, challenging Brian Fitzpatrick for the PA 1 congressional seat. Andy's very negative experience with the Bucks GOP establishment inspired him to establish the Right for Bucks organization in 2020. Right for Bucks was formed for the purpose of advocating for the prosperity, liberty, and safety of the people of Bucks County through education, advocacy, entertainment, and events. The current focus of Right for Bucks is running the precinct strategy in Bucks County to identify, recruit, train, get elected patriots running for the local Republic precinct committee seats and filing lawsuits against the Bucks and PA GOP for their bylaws malfeasance. That is Mr. Andy Meehan right there. And to the left of him, we have Mr. Andy Teitelman. This is the episode of the Andys today, guys. So just a quick introduction and bio. Andrew Teitelman is an attorney who resides in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and practices throughout the state. Mr. Teitelman combines his 40 years of experience as an attorney with a deep and abiding passion to protect our freedom and preserve our constitutional rights by representing his clients and causes at all levels of litigation in the state and federal courts. For the last decade, Mr. Teitelman has devoted a significant portion of his professional time to pro bono community service work, most recently focused on election integrity matters and issues related to the failures of the public education system. Mr. Teitelman currently sits on the board of directors of the Phyllis Scalafy Eagles Forum of PA and is an emeritus member of the Board of Senior Adults of Greater Education. He is also an active with the Right for Bucks, the premier grassroots conservative advocacy group in Bucks County. Guys, these are our guests today. And so, Guys, I'm a pet today. I just want to let y'all guys know. Usually I am. It's been me coming up. Now I have a co-host. I have Selma, and she's going to help me brainstorm some of these topics and touch on a lot of different cultural and political things. But today I am going to take a back seat. I've always was taught to, you learn when you just sit there and listen to people who got more experience, more education than you. And so I like this, believe it or not, I like to listen more than I talk. I know it's hard to believe. And so, of course, I'm gonna have things to say. I got some opinions about some things, but Andy Meehan and Andy Teitelman helped script this show today. And we're gonna talk about a lot of things, a lot of worldview things. We're gonna break it all the way down to the state, to the local level. And this might be 1 or 2 episodes. We might not get everything in these 2 hours. So everything that you thought that you knew was a lie. We are going to take you out of the matrix. This is what this episode, or this next 2 episodes, 2 or 3 episodes might be about. So stay strapped up, get your popcorn ready. I promise you, everybody, I got to put this disclaimer out before I pass it to Andy Meehan. If you watch this after this, we did not disappear ourselves. We did not just go missing. We're not suicidal. Please, so just enjoy the show. So I'm gonna pass it off right now to Mr. Meehan.
Well, thanks, Alante. It's great to be here
Yes.
with you and your wonderful staff, and to have this platform to get the word out on what's happening in the world. So Andy Teitelman and I spoke about what we really wanted to cover, and so we'll start with kind of a 20,000 foot view and kind of drill down from there. And it's really based on a lot of things that you see going on in the world today that you can't explain, you can't put your finger on, but something is wrong. 6 years ago when I ran for Congress, I didn't, I was very naive and unwise or unlearned in the way that the system works. But when you run for an office and you get the type of, dirty tricks and shenanigans and stuff that the establishment will pull out to make you fail, it makes you question what your perception of reality was. And it set me on a course of discovery to find out what really was going on inside the Bucks County Republican Committee. We started Right for Bucks, and we started recruiting committee people under this precinct strategy that we learned from Dan Schultz from watching Steve Bannon's War Room. And really, it's the only thing that's going to save our republic, I believe, because we've gone so far down a bad path, and we've been sold a bill of goods. So the perception of people that they have of the world and that I had of the world has completely changed over the last 6 years with my experience in getting involved in the politics and seeing how the sausage is made. A lot of help from Andy Teitelman here, who's been a absolute warrior. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of pro bono legal work is what Andy has, donated his time for this cause for patriots. Yeah. And it's great to have friends like Andy. A lot of the people that are involved with Right for Bucks are wonderful patriots. They're focused on the Constitution. They're focused on being active and doing things and not just sitting on their keyboards and complaining and bitching and moaning about what's going on in the world. And so, what we really are dealing with at the top level is pure evil. And there's 2 things that are really going on with regard to the human condition. We're all human beings, and inside the hearts of men, all men and women, of course, lies this conflicting reality. And the conflict comes from we have God-given rights and a God-given spirit to be free and to want to express ourselves and want to be left alone and live our lives as we will. And that's in the hearts of all men. But also in the hearts of men is this excruciating, this crushing desire to control other people. And it comes down to really what you saw if you're a fan of the J.R.R. Tolkien series, The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. And it's a story of how the one ring rules all the other rings. And it's kind of like if you drop a few droplets of olive oil in a cistern or in a toilet. Eventually, those 3 drops of oil are going to find each other and congeal. And this is what happens with power. Power is always trying to consolidate itself, make itself greater. And this is the big struggle. One of the biggest struggles that we have is the centralization of power. It's what our founding fathers founded our nation upon. Everything that we look at in the Constitution is to decentralize power and to limit the power of government. And that's why it's such, you see such efforts to ignore the Constitution, destroy it, change it, modify it, all these things that you see going on out there. It all comes down to the centralization of power is the big theme. And of course, the other theme is inside the hearts of men is greed. So they want to possess things. They want to grow their wealth and their possessions. And so if you have this incessant need for centralization of power and you put on top of that greed, you get the type of things that we see in our world today, which are driven by evil satanic people doing things to enslave other human beings. And if we take it back to the founding of our country, they were very wise men that had watched the horrors of what happened in Europe over the prior 1,000 years with the games of thrones that were going on and the centralization of power and greed over in Europe. And they escaped to America to end all that and to give us a system of government that we could be free. And unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, that system was not made for immoral people. When you have freedom, you have the freedom to go out and shoot people. You have the freedom to do all kinds of bad stuff. But if you are moral and you have a compass, many people get that through their faith in a higher being, God, then you are less tempted to take advantage of the system for your own greed or your own centralization of power. And so, this is the kind of the thing that is overwhelming us right now is that at one point in the history of our country, evil, globalist, greedy people, very smart, very devious people, infected and injected themselves into our government. And beginning in 1913, when under the cover of darkness, they voted to establish the Federal Reserve Bank, which is neither federal or doesn't reserve anything really. And basically we handed our currency and the control of our currency over to a private central banking cartel. And these people have perfected what they do over the centuries, and they've used this Federal Reserve system of being able to create our currency to make us slaves to the debt. And what you see going on in the world with all of these endless wars, if you peel back the layers of the onion and you don't buy the nonsense that we're out there trying to do regime change all over the world to help democracies and spread democracies and bring peace and love to the world, it has nothing to do with that. All you have to do is look at the history of the 20th century in particular, and it's rolling on right now, is that all of these wars have been engineered and caused by people in our own government or in the shadow government, the deep state, driven by the bankers. And the reason why they do it is pretty simple. If you can get a country to agree to go to war, and in our country, we're supposed to get the Congress to declare that. We've gotten away from that totally, and there's reasons for that. If you can get a country to go to war, then you can, if you have control of the currency, you can print that money and not have to present Andy Teitelman or Alante Macaulay a bill to increase your taxes to pay for the war. So this is why we're $38 trillion in debt now, and we are slaves to this Federal Reserve banking system. And all of the wars that have been created, many of the life-changing events that we've seen over our lifetime, JFK, 9/11, most recently the Ukraine war that we started. And of course, you'd be remiss not to mention October 7th. So what is it that all these things have in common? There's some catastrophe that is created, and they blame it on a boogeyman. And now we have to go flatten this place or get rid of that person and fight this war and fight that war, or they're going to come to our shores and do it to us here. And so that's what we have right now in our world, is the centralization of power handed over to these crooks who not only are they in the banking system, but all their friends are in corporate America in the military industrial complex. So they profit off of both sides of the war, as they did with World War II and all the other wars that are out there. And they make their friends rich by printing the money and making our children and grandchildren have this debt bubble that, we're creating to line their pockets with the spoils of the profits of war. And so it's not just the Democrats, it's both the Democrats and the Republicans. Our national federal government has been taken over by crooks and criminals, and we've seen it over and over and over again. And it's funny that even when you get a fighter like Donald Trump in office, and we expect to see big things happening with the toppling of the system, we get the same old with, for an example, if you wanted to dismantle this system and take out, the people and the methods by which they do business, you would expose everything that went on with the Jeffrey Epstein case, that we're under a blackmail regime from the intelligence operations, and they're using that to get the most powerful people in the world to do all kinds of crazy things that nobody would ever do unless you had big time blackmail over them. So that's the reality of our world. And people just need to see it for what it is and to stop listening to the mainstream media. All of it is lies. Every bit of it that they've been telling us is lies. The people just need to wake up and get their news from other things, independent news outlets. That's why you're seeing an abandonment of people not turning on the televisions and watching cable news anymore, because they just don't believe it anymore. It's all BS. So that's gotten us to this point. That's where we are. And we just need to make sure that people see it for what it is and talk about it. These days, I judge people by what they don't talk about. Mm-hmm. So if you're on the national level and you're not talking about the Federal Reserve and the stranglehold that it has over us, and the debt slave model that we're living under, then you're not a serious person. If you're in the Bucks County Republican Committee and you're not talking about the shenanigans with the bylaws and what's happening with the elections that they're running, then you're really not serious about fixing what the problems are. But we're serious about it, and I know my friend Andy Teitelman here is deadly serious about it. So Andy's not real serious about a lot of things, but he's serious about that. So I don't know if Andy's got any perspective he'd like to add there. I've kind of monopolized this conversation.
I think he did the whole 2 hours and the next segment in that opening speech. That was fantastic. But there is a former director, William Casey of the CIA, and I just want to preface this remark and virtually everything else I'm going to talk about today by indicating that the people who are doing this to us, my personal belief is they are Satanists. And the ones that don't say, oh, I don't believe in Satan, or I don't worship Satan, then they're tools of the Satanists. And they may be unwitting, and a lot of people are unwitting, but at the end of the day, the Satanists follow a fundamental rule. They have to tell us or show us what they're doing to us in order for them to gain the power. Unlike God, they get power because we relinquish it to them. So William Casey, when he was director of the CIA, said something to the effect of, we will know our job is done when everything the American people believe is a lie. And that goes on to what Andy was just saying, Andy Meehan was just saying. We are bombarded from every direction, from people trying to mold what we are thinking, steer what we are thinking, steal our freedom, steal our wealth. And by the way, we don't use money in this country, and we have not used money since we went completely off the gold and silver standards, which are both biblical and constitutional money. We use Federal Reserve notes, which are pieces of paper, and they're called notes for a reason. They're debt obligations. But what people don't understand is the debt obligation is us, we the people, to them, the Federal Reserve, who controls the money flow. And the Federal Reserve derives from the Rothschilds' international banking family. They control the central banks of virtually every country that has a central bank, and the countries that resist having central banks tend to get invaded by the countries that have them. The Rothschilds, through their central banking money minting control system, have been on both sides of every single war. Some would say, including the Revolutionary War here, but certainly since that time. And that includes the wars that we have been brainwashed into believing were good wars, like World War II. None of these wars needed to happen. They should not have happened. Rational people would not have allowed them to happen. And I assure you, the families, the mothers, the fathers on both sides of every war, if asked, do you want to send your sons to die, would have said no. So we have to be cajoled and tricked and forced into war. And that's pretty much the way they get the power from us. We have to relinquish it. And I'm no better than anyone else, except for one thing. I have an open mind. I've allowed myself to confront my own misbeliefs, the beliefs that I shouldn't have had, and I'm on a journey now. I still don't know what is the truth, but I know for certain that I'm open to modifying my belief system when I'm confronted with good evidence and information from people, open debate. And that is, by the way, and I'll throw it back to you to ask questions at this point, but that is the biggest war we're in right now. The freedom of speech, more than any other right that God gave us, that is enumerated in the Bill of Rights, is the one weapon that we have to counteract bad thought, bad reasoning, and any power that the dark forces that are trying to ruin our lives and take over the entire world, not just this country, they would not be able to do it if we didn't relinquish our freedom of speech. And shows like this and the platforms that it goes on, you're worried about YouTube canceling you or not monetizing this show or throttling it backwards. That, they're not obligated to honor our free speech, but we're also not obligated to honor those who don't. So free speech is the key to everything. And as they steal that from us because we let them, it's always our fault. They don't get to do it unless we let them. That's the key to everything else we're going to be talking about.
That's awesome. Before I give my opinion, I want to, Selma, I want to know what you think about, and I agree with a lot what you said. I have like a different points that I'm going to touch on with this. But Selma, what do you think about what you're hearing right now?
A lot to unpack. I'm a dork, so I did research this morning and wrote notes on things I want to cover. But something that you mentioned, Andy Meehan, is, people want power and they want control. And I feel like people have forgotten the Stanford experiment of 1971. It lasted 6 days. There were two roles. You had prisoners and you had the officers. The prisoners were dehumanized the second they left their home. They were arrested from home. It was made to look like as real as possible. The officers were given the opportunities to do whatever they want, degrade them, psychological torture. It was cut after 6 days because when you have unretained power, when you have this endless opportunity to power over someone, people's lives were in jeopardy at that point. The 6th day, not even a whole week, people's lives were in jeopardy. Why? Because social roles are so determined on how people act in society. And the second that you are given this free reign, which the global elitists and this big political machine have, and they always have, they just do it behind closed doors and people don't know, is why we are where we are. And it's us as common, the average Joes, average Janes need to do due diligence and put our foot forward and say, it's time for us to actually educate ourselves instead of believing what we see on TV. When they own the information, what you see is what you get. That's a great song by John Mayer, Waiting on the World to Change. And I resonate with it. I'm young, I'm a young adult, and I don't want to wait on the world to change. It needs to. I want to have children and grandchildren, and I'm afraid of what world I'm going to leave them with when I just sit back and wait on the world to change because it's not going to. I could go on and on, but I'm ready to start this conversation and get bouncing because there's so much to unpack.
All right, so that's wonderful. Thank you for like you guys are all like I'm learning as I go. Like I told you, my last 2 years I've been crash coursing, right? So guys, what you're hearing right now, like Mr. Meehan, like he gave like a big view of as we dive deeper in, and we're going to hit each topic of or why is this happening, how do we fix it, and how to analyze the situation. Me, I come from a viewpoint of knowledge, of course, is power, right? Like you learn these things. And so I'm not one, I got more of a simplistic like way I look at these things, right? And so like, okay, I understand this is all BS, it's all corrupt. I get it. And so my thought process is this. I'm not trying to necessarily like I want to arm people to know how to play the game because these people are extremely powerful. They're extremely wealthy. They got more resources than me. And so like, all right, how do I once I understand what the game is, how do I play this game? And now I'm trying to beat you at this game. Are you going to ever win? No, but you just want to give yourself the best quality of or chance at a quality of life as possible, right? Yeah. And so like I just was on the phone with somebody the other day, and I was telling them that I know like the Board of Education was started in 1979, Jimmy Carter, and so the Department of Education, yeah. Not the Board, the Department of Education, excuse me. And so I remember still when I was in school, like the first few years of schooling, I remember like the reading about the United States Constitution, Declaration of Independence, Bill of Rights. Like I remember these things. And saying the Pledge of Allegiance in school, prayers, all of this stuff. I don't even remember when we stopped doing it. It just was. And so when I'm having these debates with people online, and like I told you, like I'm more like we're going to hit a world view, and then we're going to bounce back to like more of a ground or earth like type of view and try to connect them so people can understand how to see the world. And so this is what I guess my angle is going to be from, right? And so I'm having debates with people. You see me all the time. I'm sitting there debating people online, and I'm not doing it necessarily for the person that I'm talking to, but somebody who has maturity, enough emotional intelligence can say, okay, he said this, let me take, and see what the real truth is, right? I'm not doing it necessarily for the person that I'm engaging with, but I tend to find that most or majority of people don't understand that when our country was founded, that we have documents that tells you how this thing should run. And I had to relearn these things. I said, I don't even remember what's in the Constitution. So like I'm Googling this stuff, and people think the government's role is, it's very simple. If you look at it, it's not necessarily, they talk about it more in the preamble, but the government's role is to protect your unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And people forget that big word of pursuit. So their job is just if they are taxing you, to create the infrastructure to protect you from external and internal threats, whether domestic or foreign, and just pretty much give you the opportunity and space for you to be great, to get as much as you want, how much as you want. And so people are fighting for communism, they're fighting for socialism, and they don't even know it. And so you guys said something that's very important. It's not necessarily that it's one party that's doing the correct thing, and they're both corrupt. And so part of my pushback, and I don't necessarily want to say pushback, but I got a different view, that for the first time in maybe, I don't know, hundreds of years, I don't know, that we actually have one person that is fighting for us, and that is President Donald J. Trump. And I wholeheartedly believe that, and I have points to back that up. And so, and before I pass it back to Mr. Meehan here, I just want to say that for decades, we have been fighting against the deep state. You guys mentioned this. Globalists, we're going to break all these terms down, because when we say globalists, deep state, I have Democrats that follow me. I got low propensity people that follow me. And they have no clue what I'm speaking about, but I'm trying my best to educate them in certain ways.
Before you bounce it back to Andy for something more in depth, I want to give the audience a couple of resources that are free and deep, and where they need to start and where they need to go to develop the information, because information is the key.
Yes.
Reliable information is the most important information, but it's up to you to develop discernment to figure out the difference and to constantly be examining.
Right.
Number one, there's a current series that just started on Bards FM. That's Scott Kesterson's podcast, which can be found on Podbean. Our friend Rochelle Porto, they just did the second episode yesterday, is doing a course on the Constitution. And what you said is so true, Alante. To the extent there, I think they mentioned the name of it now in school, but they don't get into the in-depth. No one teaches the Federalist Papers anymore. Rochelle Porto is a lifelong educator, and now that she's in retirement from, and now that she's in retirement, well, I think you had her on, right?
No, I've met her. I met her earlier in the year during the primary for this year.
Well, you need to bring her in.
Yeah, she's coming.
She's excellent. She retired from teaching in the Philadelphia schools to now giving constitutional education. She's very active in the John Birch Society, but I highly recommend. It's every Saturday it posts. You can go back and listen to the old ones. It's constant. Go to Podbean and get Bards FM with Scott Kesterson, and you'll be blown away. Then I just mentioned the John Birch Society, JBS. They have a wealth of free information. Just go to their website and you will be blown away because they are as fundamental about the founding of the country and the Constitution as any resource. They are nonpartisan. People assume that they're Republican oriented. They are not. They are constitutionalists, but there is unfortunately no party there's a party calls itself the Constitution Party, and I think they're okay, but there's no one in the major parties that is advocating the Constitution. It might get lip service, but that's about it. And if you combine those two resources and then one more that you can get free called The Creature from Jekyll Island, it is the definitive book on the founding of the Federal Reserve, the fraudulent nature of our fiat currency, the inevitability of the ultimate crashing down of the economy as we know it. And it won't be the first time it's happened. We'll get into that deeper as we progress. But the one that's coming for us soon, that's happening in real time, we're watching it happen, will be the grandest of all time. And God only knows what it's going to look like on the other side, especially given the lack of knowledge and preparedness of the average American at this point. So G. Edward Griffin wrote the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island. It is available for free in the various archives on the internet. Alante, I promise to give you links to everything I'm talking about so that you can post it with the social media, with the show and the show notes. And if people just go to those three places, they will have the foundation to first go through the mourning process of realizing that they were lied to their entire lives, some by well-meaning people who were lied to as well, others by the deviants who are bringing us down this terrible pathway. And then they'll be able to rebuild. It's like losing your best friend because your belief system is part of who you think it's part of who you are. Right. When you find out that your belief system is just that, another system that you've been indoctrinated into, and when you take control and ownership of it, you'll be able to sit in a room like this with people like this and have an honest conversation about everything that matters without being worried about being shut down or throttled. Like, I'm sure that the YouTubes will do this program, which is very unfortunate. And take back your free speech by taking back your free thought.
Right. That's amazing. Thank you for that. And so real quick, before I pass it to Andy Meehan, thank you for, providing that. Cause like I said, I've had to do a lot of crash coursing and a lot of research. And so I make sure I make sense of my debates and it's not just emotional. Like we have resources to go to with how these things are supposed to run. Right. And so the only thing I want to say before I pass it off is that, but you can't turn, it's like asking to turn the Titanic around soon as it saw the iceberg and like this. And so I don't think it was realistic. A lot of people don't have a realistic view of these 4 years that we were blessed with. We fought for, but it took God and it took patriots that really cared. And so it wasn't what needs to be turned around. Everything you've been talking about has been happening for the last few centuries. And so it wasn't going to just get turned around in 4 years. Not when you're going against globalist, deep state, the CIA, all of this crazy stuff. The thing is, if we do not, and I know I'm bringing it back down to earth, and I know you're going to take it to where you take it to, but if we do not win in 2026, this was our last chance. this was over. We're going to need another 4 years and another 4 years. I believe you talked about Game of Thrones and things like this. This war, the spiritual war, this war for our freedom, not to be debt slaves, this is going to be a war for decades to come. You can't just fix this in one presidential, but he was the first person to say these things on TV. We talked about it in these Patriot groups. You never seen anybody get on camera and tell fake news. You never heard it before. Name the president that was saying you fake news. Name the person that was talking about the deep state, talking about the globalists, went to the World Economic Forum and the World Health Organization and told them to their face that we're going to be America first. We getting out of this deal that we got with you, and you never seen it. Everybody took our jobs and our manufacturing companies and they sold them off to China and everywhere else. These crazy trade imbalances, they looked at him like he was crazy. And it was normal for everybody else in the world to tariff us to death, but we're not allowed to do that back. And so I just want to say that, like, he was the first. No, will he solve everything? No. And like I'll get into the Epstein thing later because I got an opinion about that. So I want to pass it back to Mr. Andy Meehan and take us to where you want to go.
Yeah. Well, if you look at what's going on in our world, the big problems that we have, the endless wars, the massive debt, the crisis of our youth, having their minds enslaved by the devices that are being controlled by evil people who have taken over the media, all the institutions, the national security state, the surveillance state. We'll get into that too, the control grid that they're going to be hoisting upon us. But all of our problems that we have in the world really come down to not sticking to the Constitution. The founders of this nation were geniuses in understanding human nature and what's in the hearts of all men. And they designed the best system ever, the most best imperfect system ever for trying to fight back against these forces of decentralization of power and greed. Now, with our system, it does benefit by greed. Because if you give people the freedom to keep their own money that they earn, they're going to go out and work hard and build a business and save their money. So in that regard, you can use greed in the human heart for good purposes to get people to work. If you leave them alone and let them keep their money, that's why this country was so successful coming out of the gate. But with the advent of the Federal Reserve Bank and finally with the removal from us from the gold standard back in the early 70s, when Richard Nixon told the Frenchies who came to get their gold, sorry, you can't have it. So that was the deal. You'd exchange, bills, paper
I don't think
for gold.
we had it anymore to give them.
Yeah,
they actually sent a naval flotilla over to pick up their gold, and I think the gold is no longer in the possession of the governments.
You don't think it's at Fort Knox?
Well,
Can we see it?
I didn't have time to read the last audit. In fact, I don't think it exists.
That left out the news cycle quick. He was supposed to go check it, and then what happened? They stopped reporting about it.
And Trump likes gold more than anybody. Everything's plated in gold, even the toilets on his private jet. So you think he'd want to see what's in Fort Knox?
He let it go. So
So this straying away from the Constitution and the expansion of government. Of course, the income tax was brought into play, and that gave the evil people, just another method to rain their fire down on the people. The establishment of institutions such as the Council on Foreign Relations. The Council on Foreign Relations was set up by, I think it was Rockefeller back in around this treacherous time of the early 1900s, Woodrow Wilson, the destruction of the land. The Council on Foreign Relations is a very, very, very insidious, they make it sound, real nice, Council on Foreign Relations. They've established this liberal world rules-based order that anybody that comes along that doesn't agree with it is going to be either, chased out of town, called a racist, called this name or that name. This is what they did to Trump because he was out there talking about these things in 2015. And so most, if not all, of our secretaries of state over the past 70 years have been members of the Council of Foreign Relations. All of the people that are at the upper echelons in the government, Many of them have been vetted or come through this factory of the Council on Foreign Relations, and it's a globalist organization. They want to rob us of our sovereignty. They want to put us in perpetual debt so that the people will just give up and say, oh, please, mother government, come and save me. I can't deal with this anymore. So they create this problem and then they solve it. This is the same thing that goes on over and over and over again. They create the problem and then they solve it. What's the biggest example of this? The easiest example, because it's so visual for people to see, is 9/11. So the story that we were fed on 9/11 was that these evil Muslim terrorists hijacked airplanes and flew them into steel buildings, steel reinforced buildings, and caused 3 of them, not just 2 with the planes hit, but 3 of them to collapse in a just eerily, visual way, right down on their own footprint, the same that we've watched every imploded building from Las Vegas to wherever. Any old casino that you see compiling down on itself came down exactly the same way as the 2 towers. What a lot of people don't even know is that there was a 3rd building that was brought down on that day, and that was Building 7. And if you look into
it didn't
this...
get hit by anything, by the way.
Didn't get hit by anything. It was a steel reinforced building that was brought down by office fires, right? Never happened.
Where did the fires even come from? The whole thing is absurd, and I'm at the point now, just to fill this in, and you can call me a tin hat if you want. I'm happy with this. I think that the aircraft that we thought hit those buildings were CGI, graphically introduced into the view. There were other views and other shots that some of them have leaked out that didn't show any airplanes, and yet the explosions taking place, and they were unnatural. They actually didn't find any airplane parts. They found a passport.
When it disintegrated, what was it? The jet fuel was so powerful that no airplane parts found or anything. Huh?
Jet fuel is a variation on kerosene, and it does not burn hot enough to take out tempered steel. And there are people that have done the scientific analysis. I'm not going to pretend that I'm qualified to do that. But they love for us to debate. This is where the conspiracy theory, the first time you ever heard that was in relationship to the JFK assassination. And it was a term invented by the CIA. And they love it because they have us all arguing with each other and no one's paying attention to actual evidence, and we stop truth seeking. We want to own our opinions. And if someone says no, you're wrong, and then it's fighting words and people get all defensive, we have to stop doing that. And we also have to stop, in my opinion, idolizing people and thinking there's a human savior that is going to single-handedly change thousands of years of human nature and somehow cure the problem. So, some people think that I may not be supporting President Trump when I say these things, but that's not true. In fact, I think I'm supporting him better as long as he's genuine. And I think there's an argument that he is or he isn't. And we have to actually have that debate so that we can formulate valid current opinions subject to more information. I support the concepts that Donald Trump brings to the table. I want him to do what he said he's going to do, and I pray that he finds the strength and the energy to do it. By the same token, I refuse to not criticize when what he does or does not do is not aligned with what he says he would be doing. So we have to be allowed to criticize the people we hire to run our lives through our government. But yeah, we were lied to about everything, and I was very sensitive to the World Trade Center story because that's when I really began to wake up myself. That was like, there's something wrong with this picture. And yes, I was as patriotic. I had the flag hanging out my back window like everybody else during those quiet days. If I remember how quiet it felt.
Could I ask you before I pass it to Sal? I mean to interrupt, but because you're speaking about 9/11.
Yeah.
Dick Cheney just passed away. What is your thoughts about Dick Cheney?
Well, you shouldn't be glad when somebody passes away, but as I will put it, as Scott Kesterson said to me about it, I was not unhappy.
I shouldn't laugh. I'm sorry.
He's been referred to as Darth Vader, And I'd be willing to represent Darth Vader in a libel suit for that comparison. Dick Cheney's history is as nefarious as it gets. He's as much a New World Order deep stater as you can be. And when you take the time to understand who he was, where he came from, and where he ended up, and his conduct during the 9/11 episode, you will realize that Darth Vader would have the upper hand in that libel suit.
Yeah. So people are, oh, really, Andy? 9/11, how could, in order for you to think that the government was involved or enabled this, you would also have to believe that they would then put thousands and thousands of young men's lives at risk in going to a war for 20 years after 9/11. You say, yeah, well, they're completely capable of this.
And they do it over and over again.
Yeah. So there's a fellow by the name of Richard Gage, Gage. You can look him up. He has a 9/11 Truth movement. He is a architectural and structural design engineer, and he is part of a society of architectural engineers, 1,800 of whom have called for a reopening of the 9/11 investigation. This has also been called for by former Congressman Kurt Weldon, himself a firefighter, who knows that the story that we've been told through this cover-up, the 9/11 Commission, is complete nonsense. There's overwhelming evidence that a chemical called thermite was used to sever the columns of the three buildings so that it could then tumble down on its own footprint. Because think about it, if a plane, and even if you believe a plane hit it or not,
it would just fall over, topple.
It would melt and it would go to one side. It wouldn't come, and you wouldn't hear explosions from that you heard. If all you have to do is look at the testimony of the NYPD guys that were on the site. I heard explosions, boom, 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 boom. And if you look at a slowed down video of the toppling of the towers, you can see the windows getting blown out and things going out this way, which is totally, the physics of it don't work.
And the debris field, it was pulverized. That would not have happened if they were truly hit by aircraft. And as Andy was saying, you would expect the top part to fall over, and the debris field would look entirely different.
It was controlled demolition.
Absolutely.
Absolutely controlled demolition. And then, as with anything else, if that wasn't enough evidence for you, you should always ask yourself, well, what happened next, right? So 3 days later, we had this bill that came out of nowhere called the Patriot Act, right? They just had it ready, right? 3 days later. And what was the Patriot Act for?
Surveillance.
It says, those boogeymen over there, those evil Muslim terrorists just attacked our country. And we need the ability for the government to spy on every American so that this can never happen again. Right, everybody? Oh, yeah, right. Everybody but Rand Paul votes for the thing. And that ushers in the whole FISA regime, which they used against President Trump.
Secret courts, secret warrants.
Secret courts and secret warrants. And then in addition to that, what happened next? We went to war for 20 years in the deserts of the Middle East. We got sucked into one conflict over another. They lied to us about the weapons of mass destruction to go into Iraq. The next war, the next war, the next war, And so, like we were saying at the beginning, all these wars are created by the bankers and the intelligence agencies, and all of the death and destruction and the murder of all those young men who died in the sands of the Middle East is a tragedy, an unspeakable, horrific tragedy, and still going on today. We have our own Congressman, Brian Fitzpatrick, who goes on social media calling the war in Ukraine Putin's war of aggression. Well, Brian, you were over in Ukraine in 2015 helping the Bidens cover up all the corruption over there, and the war, the overthrow of the Yanukovych government orchestrated by Victoria Nuland and the other reptilians in the State Department who chased the duly elected Russian president out of Ukraine. And then they started murdering people in eastern Ukraine. They insert this cokehead actor puppet named Zelensky to come in. And now all of a sudden they're saving democracy with these people that they've installed.
Why are you holding back?
Preach.
They're threatening to bring Ukraine into NATO. Of course the bear is going to respond. You're poking the bear on his doorstep. Just like when the commies went to put nuclear bombs on Cuba. Were we going to put up with that? Hell no, we weren't going to put up with that. The same as Vladimir Putin wasn't going to put up with NATO on his doorstep and his Russian-speaking people in Ukraine getting murdered by these people. So that's just another one of these things that we've seen. So you just look at these examples of what's being done to us, and you need to step back and get your mind out of this and stop listening to these politicians like Brian Fitzpatrick. Brian, you really don't know that our CIA is responsible for the regime change in Ukraine and the war that was followed, and hundreds of billions of dollars that were spent to your friends and the people that fund your congressional run in the military industrial complex and the pharma industry. And we haven't even started talking about COVID yet.
Well,
Selma, what is your thoughts about 9/11? Some of these things these fine gentlemen spoke about.
Well, the domino effect is real, but let's look at a few days before. Who took out insurance in an area that was unheard of at the time? Domestic terrorism, or not domestic, sorry, foreign terrorist attacks, right? Well, now we're facing domestic terrorism with all the leadership nowadays. How is that convenient? And the same person who took out that terrorist attack insurance didn't show up to work that day. Seems like there's something in between the lines, right? And then mentioning while we're fighting wars in the Middle East.
He had a doctor's appointment.
Yeah,
that was the story.
Wow.
And it's interesting because, people lie, saying weapons of mass destruction. Who lied? If my recollection is correct, Netanyahu spoke in front of Congress alleging that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. Israel's military, IDF, did not place a single soldier in Iraq. We fought that war for them. Why? Well, they want to colonize the entire area. They want to carpet bomb an entire world, an entire region for the sake of their initiatives of making it this Zionist movement. There's such black and white text in front of us. It's about connecting it. We talked about before the podcast episode Netanyahu's previous last name, and guess what? I found out how he went to Cheltenham, but it wasn't readily available. You have to find one fact out and thereafter find the others. Yeah, you got to funnel it down because it's not readily available. It's not going to be readily available because who's in power and who controls all these great things? Zuckerberg and the creator of Google and AI, and they're all, guess what? In hands with Trump. And it's like you have these powerful people with Trump. Yes, I think he has great initiatives and I think he has moral standpoints, but you are who you surround yourself with. And when you have these corrupt corporations, private corporations who funnel their money to this, you're going to fold at some point. You're going to have to fold because no one at the Congress level, at the federal level, is going to succeed unless you're a sellout. We have big money in politics. We have so many organizations, including, I'm going to say, the NRA, APAC, to name a huge one. We have a wholesale beer association, a sugarcane association. All of these associations are lobbying towards our representatives who are elected to represent us, but they represent these big organizations who want easier FDA regulations. Hence why I love RFK Jr. and his stance on making America healthy again. My parents come from Europe. I see what they eat over there versus what I have available. Such a vast difference. And it's corruption. Why? Big money in politics. And when you keep that involvement, no matter how good of a person you are, they're going to overpower you because at the end of the day, money talks. It doesn't matter who you are. The worst ist ending word that I think America is classist. The big rich folks over the common people. And it doesn't matter what color you are, what creed you are, religion, sex, whatever. It is always the rich, the high elitists, the 1%, where us all being closer to being poor and broke with $0, way closer to that than being with them, are always taken advantage of.
So can I make a quick interjection here? Because we're talking about the government and governments and what they do. This is very important. Most people, like if you ask them on the street, is the country the government? And they think so. It's kind of inculcated into us in different ways. We are led to believe that if we're not loyal to the government, we're committing treason or we're disloyal Americans. And it's ass backwards. We are the country. We the people are the country. The government is supposed to derive from us. They're supposed to represent us. They're supposed to be loyal to us, not the other way around. Yet it's always the governments that bring us to the brink of disaster and destruction and wars. And then we hear that they want us to sacrifice our lives. Think about that word sacrifice. That has a religious connotation to it. And the religions that do sacrifice, especially human sacrifice, are not the religions of the God that I believe in, because sacrificing yourself is not something we should be doing. It's not biblically correct. So you give your life to save others. You can dedicate your lives to doing good work, and you can die in the course of doing that. But human sacrifice is repulsive. And yet that's what we hear when we go to war. Oh, well, we had 10,000 people sacrifice their lives. I find that to be reprehensible, but then again, it's the truth right in our faces. And we say, oh yes, they sacrificed, meaning they gave their life for a good and noble cause. And unfortunately, they may have believed that to be true, but I think we've been lied to more often than not. Yes, there's times when you need to stand up and fight, but most of the time when the government's leading you to it, that's not the time.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's y'all all said some important things. I agree with majority of the things, right? And so once again, like I want to say this, right? So I think we've always known, like, America's the most powerful country in the world, right? It's nothing we don't know that's going to happen. Even you go as far as back as like I'm gonna say Pearl Harbor. We knew Pearl Harbor was going to happen. We was warned about that. You know, we knew that 9/11 was going to happen. That them countries in the Middle East, they told us this was going to happen. I saw Kurt Weldon. He came to the Keystone Town Hall in Malvern, and so like he just blew my mind away. Like I'm like, wow, they knew where Osama bin Laden was at. He wasn't in Afghanistan. They had word. They knew exactly where he was at. They was using these Falcons in the air to locate him and his birds or what. It was just crazy just hearing this stuff, right? And so like I want to go here to where I want to say you guys are right. You are right about the big money. You are right about the relationships we have made with Israel and all these other countries and things like that, big money. But when you are the president of the United States, you are the most powerful man in the world. That comes with a certain level of responsibility. And so it's not like President Trump doesn't know these things, but what's the alternative, right? You can just say, blow it all up with Israel because you got deep staters and these insane people that are loyal to these people, and they're willing to these warmongers, and they're willing to create chaos and things of that nature. You have to play chess. And so you have to weigh out, I have to deal with this economy. I got to deal with them pulling us into these wars. I got to deal with, them opening up these borders, the drugs, all of it. So it's like, I have to choose and pick my battles. Everything will not get solved in these 4 years, right? And so like, I'm just looking at President Trump, and it's like, okay, he said, what's more important right now? Like, going to war with Israel is not my biggest problem right now. All right. So we all knew Iran was BS. Yeah. Iran has been on the verge of weapons of mass destruction for the last 50 something years. Right. And they always just close. But he said, all right. Right. So
I'm sorry, but when you just said it in such a way, you caught the essence of the big lie. And the best part is they use the same lie over and over again. Yeah. They don't come up with new ones anymore.
They just recycle it. So he said, what President Trump does, he is great. And I get this from Ada Nestor. She is one of the co-hosts on The Conservative Voice, right? These are one of my political mentors that I listen to. And she says, President Trump is great at letting people expose themselves. You are telling me that they have weapons over there. Okay. We got the best Air Force and the best military in the world. He knows his BS, but just to beat you at this game, I'm going to send this people over here and we're going to bomb their nuclear facilities. All right, that's off the table now. What's the problem? No boots on the ground. No American lives was wasted. And so, or sacrificed, excuse me, let me use that word. And so, like, Trump won in that instance. he was able to get the Middle East. Now I'm pretty sure there's still violence going on. I'm not naive. I know that, we want to talk about the United Nations. I know we're going to end up going there. These people, this organization was created to prevent or stop wars. That's what they were created to do. They haven't stopped a single war. In his first, in his second term, right? Now, I know there's still things going on with Israel, Palestine, especially Palestine with Hamas, and they're shooting their own people right now. But right now, he stopped the Congo and Rwanda, and Rwanda for fighting each other. India and Pakistan. Some of these wars we didn't even know was going on. So in 1 year, he was able to at least get these people to the table. 8 wars. The United Nations haven't done anything in this whole entire creation. And now what the United Nations is pivoting to, I just was listening to Alex Newman speak about, they had just put out a memo talking about we need everybody, we have to get everybody to be on one education system. And so their goal now is to stop people from being able to homeschool their child. They want to take that away. They want to, or if you are able to homeschool your child, you have to follow this curriculum. So all of that scientific method, things we were learning in school, the UN is now pivoting. So you're not going to be learning about any of this stuff anymore. They're saying is all of that, 72 gender talk, all of that indoctrination things, everybody's racist, all of that is what the UN is pivoting to, because that is the biggest fight right now. So when you get a president who goes in front of the United Nations, and he just was talking to the United Nations, every single one of them, and he just told them, and it was just the most shellacking thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, he was just giving it to him. You can't name another president that ever went in front of the United Nations and did what he did.
Ronald Reagan may have had a couple of good words in front of them, but I think you might be right. The world that we are being driven into, you see, they're going to need a war. They're going to need,
sure,
because the war is how they do the Great Reset every single time.
Mm-hmm.
And World War I, which was ended because the Spanish flu, which was not Spanish and about as much of a flu as COVID is.
Mm-hmm.
People don't know this about you. See, the COVID thing, it's not the first time they trotted it out. It was separated by nearly 100 years from what they called the Spanish flu, and they did exactly the same things. They say that it was played with here. It was developed at Fort Hood, which was an American Army base right here in the United States, where they were doing germ warfare type stuff. And the disease itself wasn't the big killer. Guess what they came up with back in, 1915 or 17? I forget the year it happened. They came up with a vaccine. And what were people doing to prevent themselves from being exposed? They were masking. They replayed it. They replayed it in 2020, the same playbook, but they did it better in 2020 because they had mass media at a level that they didn't have in the 1900s, and there was still a lot of Americans who wrongfully believed what they hear from the government. In fact, there still are. Yeah. That has not changed. So the playbook hasn't changed. All we have to do is come from a different perspective, look backwards, then compare that to what's going on now, and your own common sense, if you allow yourself to use it, if it hasn't gone dormant like your pineal gland, and you allow yourself to use it, you will be forced to come to different, and I'm going to use the word conclusions, but current conclusions. Everything, I think, is malleable by new information and reanalysis. You should not own an opinion that you're not willing to change. Because if you do, then you're rigid and you're becoming your own jailer, mental jailer. And they depend on that. And they want us picking a side. We always have two sides to pick, whether it's Eagles versus Dallas, the Republicans versus the Democrats. And they want you to fight for your team. And your team is the best team. And you're not going to hear about it from anybody else. Everything is team oriented. And that stops you from being considerate.
Could I add something to that before I pass it to Mr.
Sure.
Meehan? I just want to add something. This is very important what you're talking about, right? And I'm glad you talked about this. Like, things are just sparking in my head right now.
Yeah,
right?
it's happening all.
Right. Like, this is what happens when you had great conversation. And so me and Miss Mina, the head of Flip Philly Red, our goal, right? I'm always bringing it, relatable so people at home they can get the world view and then they can get the home view. One of our blatant, obvious goals, just by the name of Flip Philly Red, we are telling the Democrats in Philadelphia that we are trying to make you vote a different way. And so you are correct. You're not wrong that it is both parties. I get it. But I love the reason why I became a conservative. The reason why is because of the ideology. So it's not so with the Republican Party was felt like I had to relearn history. You said don't keep a point that you're not willing to change and things like that. And I had to relearn this thing. I'm like, all right, I used to think one way. Now I think this way once I relearned the truth. And so I was always taught all my life that Republicans evil, Republicans racist, we got captured into slavery. Like I never thought about, well, what about them African kings or whatever? They're the warlords over there. They enslaved our people and sold our people. And so like we don't learn it that way. We learn it the other way. It made no sense. It never clicked with me that these white guys, these big red heavy coats, they just ran through Africa and just started just enslaving these guys. Like I never used my common sense, right? So when I'm fighting, right, I'm not necessarily telling people to be Republican just because this is the correct party, but the ideology and what it was started for is what I'm fighting for. And so when you talked about the corrupt GOP and things like that and how these people are really Democrats, they're not really Republicans for real or what the party was founded on. And so that is part of the fight. That precinct strategy that you speak about of taking it back over in the bylaws and all of that and returning it back to its core is because I understand what the fight is. So I'm trying to win that fight.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to blow the whole thing up. And so, like, that's my whole thing. Like, I don't want people. So yes, it's not about left or right, but at the end of the day, it's one side telling people that it's okay to have men and women's sports or men and women's bathrooms. It's okay for children to have hormones and puberty blockers. It's okay for all this open borders and things like that. And you have the patriots who are saying that is not okay. So that is a clear distinction on why I tell people you have to choose a side. Because is it a two-party system? No, it is a uniparty. But we have to fight because there is no time. There's no more time. There is no other options but to take the party back and restore it to what it was founded for.
Yeah. So with the uniparty that you mentioned, how this manifests itself, you can see Pennsylvania is a perfect example of this. And this goes back decades and decades and decades. And a lot of it has its roots in these bylaws regimes that they created. But going back to the initial thing that we started our conversation with about the centralization of power, it manifests itself now in our two-party system in that the Republican Party, has morphed into a candidate selection racket for a small class of donors and wealthy business people that are running the Republican Party. And they've engineered their organization, especially in Bucks County. If you see the way that they've done the trickery with the setup of this system, I call it the creature from Burlington Island. They've got a system where they select who are the candidates that are going to be endorsed by the party in the primary elections. And if you can control who gets endorsed in primary elections, and you can bamboozle the voters into thinking that your endorsement is legitimate, meaning that you better vote for this people because the party says they're the best ones and party's always right? So once you get to that point where you can manipulate and control the primary elections, which is what the big fight is about in Bucks County, because the endorsements are made by a group called the Executive Committee. And the Executive Committee is made up of 90% of people who are appointed by Pat Poprick, the chairperson. So the duly elected committee people that are elected by the voters don't have any say in the matter whatsoever, and they don't even know it. So they're
They
being
get free coffee in Danish every 2 years when they go to the reorganization meeting,
Yeah.
though. So there is something.
Right.
Yeah.
They love their cocktail parties. And
Yeah.
pictures.
So how this manifests itself going up the chain is that we end up with and here's a classic example. In this year, we have Brian Fitzpatrick running for his, I don't know, 7th or 8th term. And he's an obvious big government, deep state, FBI type of stooge who's never seen a bill that spends other people's money on something to buy votes that he doesn't like.
Well, he's voted conservative 8% at a time. Give him a little bit of credit here.
So we'll have a choice between Brian Fitzpatrick and Bob Harvey.
Same difference.
Bob Harvey, I mean, come on. I mean, it's like you end up with what's called the magician's choice in the general election. So you give the voters the illusion that they have a choice. But in the end, if you get Brian Fitzpatrick or you get Bob Harvey, neither of these jokers is going to go to Washington and talk about abolishing the Federal Reserve and solving our problem of our government being owned by criminals and all the unconstitutional wars and the expansion of the government and all the things that they vote for over and over and over again. We have the illusion of choice. And so the main focus of the precinct strategy is to reclaim the Republican Party for we the people, so that if you're going to have a uniparty system, a two-party system, you got to make sure that one party is different than the other. And we've gotten to this point where they talk a different game and they might do some things different around the edges. Okay. But when it comes down to it, they're not talking about the important stuff that's going to sink this country.
And
nothing changes. So until we can take back the Republican Party and have people that value the Constitution and that see the threat of the takeover of our financial system and a return to our constitutional roots, we're going to keep going down this road that we're on. And the inevitable conclusion is that we don't know when, but it's coming, because they're not going to send a tax bill to Alante and Andy Teitelman to pay for the wars.
They'll print that money.
They're just going to print that money, and they've got control of the Congress. The AIPAC lobby does not have to register as foreign agents. They're a foreign lobby in our government, and they own almost all of the Congress. That's why you see the attacks coming off against people like Thomas Massey. Anybody who dares to stand up against the Israel lobby is now going to be the target, even of President Trump going after them.
That's unfortunate.
So this is the unfortunate thing that we have. And that was my biggest concern going into a Trump 2.0 is how is Trump going to respond to the pressure from the Israel lobby? And I'm sorry to say, so far, he has utterly failed us in that regard.
And he permits no dissent or criticism. You're labeled disloyal and you're tossed to the side. That is, whether you like it or not, an abrogation of free speech and open debate. If we can't criticize our own side, to hold it to account, to hold our elected leaders' feet to the fire, then what do we have? It's not even a democracy at that point. It's an autocracy. And we are at their whim and their mercy. And frankly, I do not like the people who are at the highest, surrounding the highest levers of power in this country, whether it's Peter Thiel and his self-created person in the Palantir image, which is J.D. Vance. I've never been satisfied with that choice. If you listen to Peter Thiel talk, he was asked about, in the light of the information age that we're in, the AI age that is already there, but we're just being allowed to really see it. They're trying to get us comfortable and warm and fuzzy with the nicer side of what AI can do. Let's talk about the data centers later and what that really means in terms of resources. Trump, unfortunately, in my opinion, is 1,000% behind it. The $500 billion public-private investment in the data centers and everything that goes along with that, while the necessary infrastructure to our well-being is allowed to deteriorate to the point where we have potholes and decimated streets. We have a 1920s vintage power distribution system. We take it for granted because we see them out there and we don't, it's like in the background, but it's poles with wires strung across it. It is so susceptible to attack, whether an EMP attack or any other attack. And the computers that run the system are hackable. They caught people shooting at the substations. It would take years to rebuild the transformers that are the bigger transformers that are needed. And we don't even make them here anymore. They come from overseas.
China, I think.
But that infrastructure, you don't hear about it at all. But my God, suddenly out of nowhere, they can build these massive data centers and fast track them, putting up their own power sources. They're even getting ready to reopen 3 Mile Island. Did you know about that? That's the power data centers. That's the place where we almost had the China syndrome. But they're going to reopen it now because there's the corporatists that are really running the country and the world. There are no such things as large American corporations or corporations that are based anywhere. They're all one world, and I will not use the word globalist because for other reasons that we talked about in the pre-show. Who promised us the New World Order? Does anyone in this room remember the first time you heard New World Order mentioned?
I remember George Bush telling us about it.
George Bush, number one, talked about the New World Order. I didn't know what he meant at the time. I know what he means now. And his son certainly did more to put that upon us than anyone up till that point in time. The Clintons gave us a taste of what a national medical system, Hillary Care, we called it back then. They couldn't get past the public on that one. They had to back off. They needed Obama to finish the job. Yeah. And the Bushes and the Clintons are very close to this day. There's something they're doing down in Haiti, and I don't think it's really charitable, but, they try and make it look like that. How come these two, what should be opposing factions, I used to think it was nice that they got together in the post-presidency. Now I see for what it was. They were never not together.
Yeah.
It's a continuum.
They were Bill Clinton was governor of Arkansas, and he was working with the CIA, getting cocaine in to fund the wars in Central America.
The Meehan Airport down in Arkansas.
So these people are all in it together. And to go back to the issue that we have now inside the Republican Party, look at what's happening right now with the whole, if what Charlie Kirk was going off the reservation, man, he was saying, I've got to withdraw my support for this crazy Israel lobby because I can't sell this to all my people. Mm-hmm. The young people have woken up. They're watching a genocide in Gaza. They're watching us having like this literal parasite that's attached to the United States that has infected us, that owns all of our Congress. It's infecting everything, and people have wised up to it. And you have this split coming, okay? Because if you're America first, you're America first. And any other little foreign country, no matter where they're coming from, okay, if it's not in our best interest, okay, and you can tell me that, well, we got to go fight those wars over there so they don't come to us. Bullshit. You brought the war to us when you took down, to ourselves, when you took down those buildings in New York City. We don't need those people to bring war to us. Our own side is bringing war to us so that they can expand this destruction of our country because, and this is the big important thing, because without the United States, okay, falling, okay, they can't do one world government.
Absolutely.
If you don't have the United States on board, okay, if we haven't given up because we need more government, okay, on behalf, then you can't have a new world order. And that's why all of this focus has been on the United States to bankrupt us and get us into endless foreign wars. The end of every republic comes this way, right? What about Rome, Andy?
We are Rome. We are Rome, the modern Rome. Listen, I'm just shaking my head, and I hope it doesn't look stupid on the camera here because everything you're saying, I'm feeling in real time. are, and by the way, Rome's not a bad example. If you look at the decadence that brought them down, we have become a self-indulgent, decadent society, and it was brought on us by the people we thought were empowered to protect us. Now, if you think the CIA is part of our government, then its job is to protect us. The CIA is the number one importer of drugs. They are the number one, from our countryside, purveyor of pornography, although, believe it or not, that comes from the Zionist movement as well. If you look at who the pornographers are, who create it, who spreads it, and if anyone thinks it's just this innocent thing that you can privately indulge in and walk away and go back to your clean lifestyle, no, it's an entry gateway drug that will suck you in deeper and deeper, and ultimately cause you to disrespect the people you're watching, the people who are performing, and yourself, because there are a few people who are being honest with themselves who view pornography and use it in any way for self-gratification that don't look upon themselves as having done something dirty. And most of us, in our self-defense mechanism, where we can't see ourselves as being bad, we have to lash out and blame other people, so we never own it. That propagates it even further. And listen, no one can hate you better than you hate yourself. And if somebody really does hate you, but you know yourself and love yourself, that hate won't matter. So again, you were talking about finding solutions to the kind of problems we have. Politically, it starts locally with Precinct Project. But actually it starts individually with waking up, seeing things for what they are, and then saying, I'm not going to take it anymore. I'm not going to accept this, whether it's digital ID or central bank digital currency or its evil twin, the corporatist version of electronic currency that, Trump promised no CBDC, but he didn't promise no corporate version of that. And that's what we're getting, the private version. That's even worse because theoretically that's not subject to constitutional limitations. So people don't learn the Constitution. They don't understand the freedoms that we once had, and they have no clue about what's left of them, let alone willingly giving them up. And they can only take it from us if we let them. So it starts with individuals, and it starts with, we can talk all day long, and some people will be nodding and going along. Some people may get upset, but as long as they're engaging in the debate, they're on the right path. It's the vast majority of Americans who don't even know that there is another path that worry me.
One second. I want to pivot. I want to get Selma's point because y'all said a lot. So I want to. So what do you see, Selma?
I have a lot to unpack, especially
Please,
with the
take your time.
UN and everything. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna do the UN, Israel, and everything.
Please.
I'm all for debate, and one of the things that I feel like will get people shocked is when I say I hate the UN.
Okay.
Oh, Selma, why do you hate the UN? Okay, so if we know of the history of ex-Yugoslavia was a socialist communist country, depending on who you ask, right? Socialist. One of the few times socialism worked. Why? Because I don't think it was socialism. I think it was Titoism. If you know, the leader of that time of Yugoslavia was Tito. He passed away in 1980, and he had set up this arrangement where all of the 6 republics and 2 provinces would have rotating presidencies, 1 year at a time. Greatly enough, the first rotating presidency in 1980 was a Serbian nationalist. What happened? 1991, they start realizing, hey, this is corruption. This is people wanting their own groups of people to supersede. That's why I'm against specific groups getting specific privileges. It's America first, because Americans first. As a first-generation American, it's not an anti-immigrant movement. It's me seeing it for what it is. My parents came from a really small country that never gets benefits from the U.S. Why should any other country get benefits from the U.S.? We came here for the prosperity and the success that we could achieve. My mom put her nose to the grindstone, didn't ask for a single handout, and she's thriving. So what we see in 1992, Bosnia attempts to leave ex-Yugoslavia. 93, the UN declares that several towns in Bosnia are safe spaces because at this time there was an ethnic cleansing happening, there were concentration camps, and there was a war going on between people who wanted freedom from Yugoslavia and the Serbian nationalists known as Chetniks. So what happens? Oh, Srebrenica is declared in 93 a safe space. 95, over 8,000 men and boys are murdered in that same town. That is why I hate the UN. You have this facade of we're diplomatic people, but no, we're going to do what we want to do, right? And achieve what we want to achieve. And that's where I have been outspoken against Israel since I was in middle school. 13 years old, I see Israel the same thing as those nationalists in Serbia doing the same exact thing. But this time, Israel is our greatest ally. So what happens is people believe that this is necessary, and they paint this narrative that, oh, these Palestinians are all Muslim, which first of all, they're not. If you go into history in Palestine, you see Philistia in biblical times having, and now Palestine has had churches carpet bombed, mosques, synagogues, people coexisted there. But they're painting this narrative of, oh, Muslims, bad guys. Well, frankly, if you want to talk about religion, let's see who mentions Jesus in their holy text and sees them as at least a prophet, right? Christianity sees Jesus Christ as the Messiah and the Son of the God. Islam refers to Jesus as Isa, they see him as a prophet. And then you have the Zionist movement who, if you go to Israel, and if you don't put your head on that freaking wall and commit, and say you commit to Israel's initiatives and seeing that they're the God's chosen people. Firstly, God's chosen people, we're all God's children, we're all God's chosen people. And modern day Israel is not biblical Israelites. So we need to clarify that. That is not what's going on there. And it pisses me off that people think that, oh, this mission, I'm reading it from the direct page of the UN, they're for a great cause. Well, you want to go to the Congo in 1961 and see how the UN deploys random countries that are involved in the UN to protect these people? They sent the 35th Battalion of Ireland to protect Congo from a secession. The Canningese ran. The candidate there for their party thought that he won, and it caused a whole civil war. They send around 150 men to fight and protect and be peacekeepers. These same people were interviewed after they came back from the Congo. They had to surrender because they asked the UN on the record, give us more ammo, give us weapons, give us food. They sent one helicopter with water that was contaminated, and that was the last efforts that UN had to help those 156 men, as young as 17 years old, fighting for a cause for peace, let alone they had to surrender because they had no other choice. It was 150, maybe 6 or 7 of them, surrounded by 3,000. Thankfully, the commander of that little village, was a hut, and they were attacked while they were in mass, said, okay, we're going to build trenches because I don't see us as having a safeguard here. They built trenches, and because of their strategic planning and their efforts and their resilience and ending up surrendering, they were able to at least live. They come back home to Ireland. They're not giving a hero's welcome. They're disrespected, spat on. They faced abuse. You can see the interviews and the quotes from these people themselves saying, we faced all this backlash, but we were dragged into this. They never faced war before. Now you have 17-year-olds, 35-year-olds, any age, men fighting for a foreign cause for the sake of peace, for the sake of optics, for the sake of, the facade the UN has to portray this. And that's what Israel's doing, right? I think America is the greatest superpower there is, but they fall victim to Israel's puppeteering of us through AIPAC. They spent tens of $millions last year
it's
in the
more
election.
than puppeteering, and it's not just the money. They come from both angles, Mossad style, and Epstein is tied to this. And it's both bribery and extortion, because Epstein was the honeypot, and I can only imagine what would happen if we actually found out the truth or saw the videos about what went on there. But there is a common theme through every one of those skirmishes or wars that you touched on, and it is genocide. Every single time it's about depopulation. And do you want to know where the most lucid version of the plan for depopulation is stated? Do you know who did it?
Tell me.
Henry Kissinger. I think it was 1973 or 74, is early 70s. It's called National Security Memorandum 200 by Henry Kissinger. And it talks about the depopulation strategy that the World Economic Forum became the publicity arm of. And a lot of people don't know this piece either. Henry Kissinger was the mentor at Harvard of Klaus Schwab, who was the founder of the World Economic Forum. And everything that you were talking about with the nice words from the UN and the World Economic Forum, which is, like I said, the marketing arm of the New World Order cabal, is sugar-coated turds, because you can make it look nice and make it appear to be sweet, but at the end, it's a pile of shit. And that is what's happening to our world. But again, it's back to the individual. It's our obligation to ourselves and our families, and then branching out to our communities and then to our entire country to awaken, realize what's going on. I'm not asking anyone to agree with anything I say. I am challenging them to debate, to do their own research, and to not just regurgitate what they're hearing from their favorite haircut on the news channel of choice that they rely on for their information, so they can turn to the sporting event that they really want to pay attention to, bread and circuses.
Yeah.
Right.
So I posted I was on Facebook a few weeks ago, and there was a fella from Bucks County who I've been friendly with over the years, and he was appearing on a video in Facebook sponsored by the Zionists of America. And I made a comment on the page that just said a simple fact. The state of Israel was created in 1948 with the Rothschilds banking family and Lord Balfour and the Bank of England. It's a tiny foreign country that was created by the Bank of England and the Rothschilds. And that's just a fact. Guess what happened? I'm all of a sudden an anti-Semite.
Yeah, and he's not your friend anymore.
And not my friend anymore, I guess, because I've said this basic truth. When we look at what's going on there, okay, we've been sold this fairy tale that, and especially as Christians who've been Schofield Bibled into this for the last 100 years, okay? These people came up with their own Bible that repositioned the whole Christian narrative about Israel and created Zionism, and so we're got this situation where this little foreign country that's got like what 9 or 10 million people, it's now inserted itself into every part of our government, our intelligence services, our Congress. Our president took, I don't know how many hundreds of millions of dollars from the Israel lobby. And everybody's just waking up to this fact saying, you know what? The veil has been removed. Mm-hmm. The whole Charlie Kirk thing, right? Okay. The CIA. I mean, of course they're involved with the 50 different angles or 50 different stories of who murdered Charlie. It's the kid on the roof with the furry boyfriend, who's a crack shot with a 30-odd sixth that, has an exit wound coming out here, but he shot him from over there. And the dude's on the phone and the hand signals. And now all of a sudden, Charlie Kirk is trying to be resurrected as this hero of Zionism and pro-Israel.
Well, look at Erica Kirk. Yeah. Talk about suspicious behavior in the aftermath. And she went to take the money. She accepted the money that Charlie apparently was rejecting, and now they're moving straight on course. I mean, listen, when something doesn't make sense, and you try to make sense out of it, then there's something missing that you don't know, or something obvious in your face that you don't want to believe. And for me, my belief system about that whole episode is not fully formed yet, but it is not what it appeared to be, and I'm not buying any of it.
What they're telling us, the official line, is complete bullshit. Anybody who would believe that, it's just totally ridiculous.
So let me
None
jump
of it
in.
makes any sense.
This is amazing. I'm glad y'all went there. This is going woo. I can see the comments right now, right? And so I'm gonna bounce around a little bit because there's 3 subjects I want to hit that y'all spoke about. Y'all talked about Israel, you talked about AI, and you talked about central control, right? I'm gonna start with Israel. We are at a point now in America where the words are losing their meaning, right? So everybody's a racist, everybody's an anti-Semite. We have to get by this. Like it means nothing anymore because you question Israel. I said earlier in the show that President Trump wanted to pick and choose his battles, and I still believe that. You just actually said something that kind of like stamped my point, that they're infiltrated every aspect of our country and government. And so like I just didn't feel like that was like the war to go at. I don't mind patriots or people at all. Not, you don't gotta be just talking about it. Let's have the conversation. Let's have the debate. People are throwing away Candace Owens. People are throwing away Tucker Carlson. And this is insanity. These are people who've been frontline, hardcore conservatives on the front line for years, standing up for this ideology and what we believe in. But because they decided to question Israel and the death of Charlie Kirk, now these people are idiots. They don't know what they're talking about. It really makes
anti-Semite.
Anti-Semite. So I want to say this. yes, everybody is God's people. But, and so we got to stop thinking that this old form of these old Israel people, Israelites, or this old land is God's people. No, in the New Testament, he said this. The only way to get into heaven, and I'm a Christian, so I believe this, is to profess with your lips that Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior, and he died for your sins or rose again on the third day with all power in his hands. And if you believe that, then you will get into heaven. But everybody is God's people. It's not just this one specific group of people that did this old in the Old Testament. Like, we don't go by that. That's just what I believe as a Christian. I respect everybody. I respect everybody's religion. And that's what you want to believe in. That's what you want to believe in. But this is what I believe in as a Christian, right? And so that's my and so we spoke about this as well. We talked about 9/11 and Pearl Harbor. Guys, October 7th, Israel let that happen. Let's just say what it is. There's no way that these guys, what you said, were front loaders.
Not Israel. The government.
The Israel government.
Their
Let's make that
citizens
distinction.
are as duped as we are.
Right. So so we have to make that distinction. We're allowed to question Israel government. Everybody think that we're talking about all Jews are bad. No, that's not what we believe. We don't like our government. So why wouldn't we question Israel's government, right? So I just wanted to get that out the way. When we talk about AI, I'm on board with you guys. The data centers, it's going to cost a lot jobs. People, it's going to go bad. I totally agree with that. The thing that I see what President Trump sees is you can't police the world, and the rest of the world is going that way. So after I'm done speaking, I do want to ask you guys this question. Like, when you have China that's going to continue advancing in AI, what do? Do you say, I'm not going to continue advancing in AI? So
I'll be glad to go there. But right. I have a question for you. Do you know what the foundational document was that set the stage for Israel, the modern state of Israel that we know of, to come into being?
The document?
The document.
Balfour Declaration?
That's correct.
Okay.
Do you know who that? It was like a letter. The Balfour Declaration was contained with something like a letter. Do you know who the recipient of that letter was?
The recipient? No, actually.
It was Lord Rothschild. And I don't remember the first name of that particular Rothschild, and maybe someone can look it up for us and put it out there. But the Balfour Declaration was a British government official handing to a Rothschild the certificate that would lead to the formation of Israel. And you say, well, wait a minute, why would the Brits have any interest or control over that? Well, at the time, Palestine and much of the Middle East was under British control. This was in the 19-teens period when the Balfour Declaration was delivered. And then the Rothschilds were behind the formation of Israel. And just like they control the Federal Reserve, neither federal nor reserve of the United States, and the Central Bank of Great Britain, which is contained in the city of London, which is different than London, the metropolitan area. There's a zone that is its own independent country called the City of London, which is the financial capital of the world, just like the Vatican, which is inside the city, inside Rome, is its own city-state, and it is the religious capital of the world. And then there is a place in this country that is similar. Do you know what it is? You
Washington,
do.
D.C.
Exactly. The District of Columbia is not part of the United States. It's its own city-state.
And it's a corporation.
It is a corporation. And, well, that's another story that we're not going to, I think we're coming up near the end of the episode, but we'll have to save that one for the future. There's another commonality between those three places, D.C., Vatican, and City of London. Do you know what that is?
No.
Have you ever seen the Washington Monument? It's an obelisk. It's actually a celebration of Osiris. It's actually representative of Osiris's penis. And there is an obelisk just like it at the heart of the City of London and the Vatican. And we can get into the deeper meaning of what all of that is. It's the Babylonian religion, and they're trying to bring us back to that. We're heading towards a one world religion movement, but some of us would just refer to it as satanic.
I want to thank you for adding that. or whatever. I got 2 quick points like I want to hit before I pass it to Mr. Meehan here. And so thank you for like giving me that insight, especially with that document. And so like I want to say this. We talked about who President Trump surrounded himself with. And so I remember his first term. He was kind of shocked that he won. He didn't think he said, I won, you know what I mean? So he said this. I remember him saying he was a New York guy. He did not understand Washington, D.C. He did not understand the people. He didn't know who they was. He relied on these globalists and these deep staters to pick his administration. He learned his lesson this second time going around. Not all the way. He's done better than he did the first time around.
Think that? I don't.
Hold up. I know Susie Wilds, everybody wants to look to her. And that's why we have this Attorney General Pam do nothing Bondi. And so I understand
Pam
that.
Bondi.
So playing Bondi. So we have I take my wins where I can get them in this first administration. So I look at how the military is ran with Pete Hegseth. I love that.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Me and Meena have been posting our top 10 administration people for since the whole year, actually, just to so people can keep track of what people have been doing, hold them accountable, and because people forget, you just not.
Is it true that Pete Hegseth has a copy of the Curvy Couch in his office?
Oh man, I have no clue. So I
from Fox and Friends in the morning.
I like what Pete Hegseth has been doing. I like what Mark Rubio's been doing. I love Caroline LeVette. I love Stephen Miller. These people battling the media. It has been a master class to watch what Caroline LeVette has been doing. To see Stephen Miller and how brilliant he is. I've learned, so when he talks, I listen. And so you have people, at least I can name 5, and Tom Homan has been doing the best he can do. Christy Noem has picked it up. She started off slow. Everybody was caught up in that 2024 victory in social media. And so they was on Fox News every night but I think she's taken a step back. So I can name about probably 6 to 7 people in the administration that I love. Can he do better this next year if he keeps control of Congress? Listen, Pam Bondi gotta go. Some other people can pick it up. Scott Turner could do a little bit more. RFK can do a little bit more. And like you say, we expected certain things. And so I want to go back to, before I pass it to you, the central control of power or whatever. And I wanted to make this point before we get out this episode, because I've been hammering it away at Mr. Scott Pressler, right? And so, and I want to talk about mail-in ballots real quick. And I know we've been speaking about this and ad nauseum. So it's deeper than just the voter fraud. It's deeper than that. And you spoke about this. When we talk about precinct strategy and things like that, the point of when you see us online and we're talking about MAGA committee members getting kicked out because they are constitutional patriots. They're trying to educate you on who you should be voting for. They're not going with the GOP sample ballots. They're not telling you to vote for the rhino. They're telling you the correct thing. You got precinct committee people as well. And so these people are put in place when you go to the polling places to vote, and this is for Joe or Jane Main Street, you might not be paying attention to politics much as these people are, these individuals are. But when you go vote, you got people inside and outside of that polling station, and who should I be voting for? Who are the constitutional America First patriots I should be paying attention to? And so the point of these mail-in ballots, right, when they send it to your home, is they're going to send you a sample ballot, they're going to send you the mail-in ballot, and they're going to say, okay, these are Republicans. They all got the endorsement. I should be voting for them. And so you go check, rhino. And then you sit back at home, a few months go by, and you're wondering why Congress never gets things done. You just voted for every incumbent. You just voted for every rhino, and these people are not on our side. So when we telling you to stop using mail-in ballots, I would love for you to pay attention to more, but you are so distracted by your football. You're distracted by the Real Housewives shows. You got to get drunk every single night. And so your happy hour every single weekend, and you leave it up to us to do it. I understand that. But so at least for us, please continue to go to the polling station. So you go to these America First precinct and state committee people, and they will inform you of the MAGA candidates who you should be supporting. So when we tell you that mail-in ballots is a vector for fraud, these are why We have vote flipping. This is why you have the number of ballots. This process is lower than the number returned. We have people who are doing the data, and you rather listen to this idiot who's going around, he's not educating people. He's in the rain with no umbrella and he's knocking on doors. Holy shit. And you got people on X, big X accounts who say this stupid stuff. Ask yourself this, all these low propensity voters who have no loyalty to the party, they have no education, they don't come to town halls, they're not studying, they're watching mainstream media. What education do they have on who to vote for? The Democrat Party has more money. This is what you tell me. They have more news stations, they have more propaganda that they're putting out. So these low prop voters, the last person they heard from was the Democrat. So when they fill out these mail-in ballots, who are they voting for? The Democrat. Scott Presler doesn't have a real infrastructure on who he's educating. You never hear him speak about the issues. It's only, we have to out-register people in order to win. It's the voting method of why we're losing. Oh, Charlie Kirk was assassinated, so please come out and vote. It's all this stupid shit. You sound smart to somebody dumb. And this is what we talk about, the central control of power. Excuse me, I just had to, please, Mr. Meehan.
Well, so
that was terrific.
Yeah.
Now I know why you own the show.
The Scott Presler phenomenon is something I've been watching. And Scott is being funded by the Republican establishment.
For sure.
The Republican establishment is the genesis of Act 77 and the mail-in, most liberal mail-in
Couldn't have it without them.
regime in Pennsylvania. So in 2019, the Republicans were responsible for putting Act 77 on Governor Wolf's desk, and he gladly signed it. They thought that it was a good deal to get rid of just flip one switch so that nobody could just say, oh, I'm voting blue or red. And they were willing to give up the mail-in ballots. No, here's the game. Okay. And this is until Scott Presler starts talking about the precinct strategy and recruiting patriots to run inside the Republican Party, then I know that he's not talking about what he should be talking about. But what if you wanted to take over a party and you wanted to run a candidate selection racket and you wanted to centralize power, you would do two things. The first thing that you would do is that you would gain control of the endorsement mechanism. They've already got that in Pennsylvania. All the state committee people are basically selected by the county chairs who endorse the slate of state committee people. They tell all the voters to vote for them. Okay, why? Because they can control them. All right. So if you want to control everything, you get control of the endorsement process so that once that person's name gets on it, they can put it on that sample ballot that they're going to hand out and text out to everything, then everybody. The next thing you would need to do would be to get 25% of the Republican voters addicted to mail-in voting, because then all you need to do would be to text them or email them the copy of your sample ballot of all the people that you've pre-selected and say, be a good Republican, vote for the endorsed Republicans. And so that's what they've done. So they're ensuring that they will never lose another primary election again to maintain the magician's choice in the general elections. So the Republican establishment is responsible for that. And this is the mechanism. And this is why Scott Presler is being paid money to get people to sign up for mail-in voting, because it further concentrates the power.
I just don't understand the message either, because it's far more than Scott Presler. I've went to a bunch of Republican sponsored events, having candidates show up, and they're encouraging people to sign up for a mail-in ballot, not use it, and bring the mail-in ballot to vote. Like in person,
I can
you're
explain
just confusing
that.
people.
No, I can explain. Oh, I think I can explain that, because there was first of all, I have hated mail-in ballots. I think the only chance we have of a potential reliable count is to go in person. It's harder for them to cheat if we go in person. Mm-hmm. When you mail the ballot in, it's a mysterious process.
I agree. There's no forensic tracking, but you're just confusing the voters that aren't going to retain all those steps.
But there is a safety reason for doing it. By ordering a mail-in ballot and receiving it and then going to the poll, having it canceled, and then voting at the poll, you're eliminating their ability to insert a vote in your name. So I've been down this road. I worked on Kathy Barnett's campaign as campaign counsel. That was 2020. We saw the first implementation of Act 77 at the primary, which was held in June that year, and it was a cluster F. And we knew right away we were going to have a problem because they would not let us watch and observe in Montgomery County, which is where this was, the opening and separation from the outer and inner envelope of the actual ballots. That's the point where you must see it. We were held in a pen. Remember, COVID, we were held in a pen, and some people were stuck in a room with a big screen television sliced up into like 8, and you're supposed to watch the vote counting this way. All the people in the main room got to see was the ballots being wheeled in from the machine that opened them to where they got scanned in the scanners. You didn't get to see a ballot. You didn't understand what happened at the opening section, and you didn't know whether they signed the external envelope or put the date on it. You couldn't contest the mail-in ballots at all. We have gotten a little bit of improvement over the years in that mechanism, but at the end of the day, mail-in ballots in Pennsylvania are unconstitutional. The Pennsylvania Constitution permits absentee ballots in only certain limited ways. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court went out of its way using the mental gymnastics version of legal interpretation to declare that these things were not unconstitutional. If we can't depend on the courts, if we can't depend on an executive and a legislature to operate independently and cross-check each other, check and balances, then we have a unified political structure that melted together to form. We no longer have checks and balances for the most part, not where it matters, and they all just go to some common cause that none of us sitting here will have any appreciation.
So I have a question for you. I've seen someone who's a very public figure or personality online for the Republican Party, and they essentially encourage, like, if you can't beat them, join in. Like, if you don't want mail-in voting, vote by mail-in, and then once Republicans win, which they probably never will do so with mail-in voting, they'll stop mail-in voting. What do you say to that?
Makes no sense. You know, it's like fight fire with fire is one theory, or, well, it's better to vote than not to vote. Vote for the least worst candidate. And I have a whole different perspective on that altogether. We talked at the beginning about you have to give permission to the Satanists to do things to you. They have to tell you what they're going to do, then you have to agree to it. And one way to agree to it is by acquiescence, that is participating in a corrupt operation. And the other one is by ignoring it. You don't get a free pass because you're ignoring bad conduct. You are agreeing to it by not disagreeing to it.
Bystander.
Correct. So in my view, and I'm going to say it, there's people that know this already, I'm going to say it, like, I know we're coming close to the end of this episode. I deregistered. I will no longer vote. I am not going to vote until a few minor standards that are very major at the end of the day, but they should be minor, are put into place. Number one, we go back to paper ballots. Paper ballots counted by human beings. They can be under very close supervision. That's where our technology comes in. Everyone at home should be able to watch the counting going on, and anybody who has an objection should be able to state it in real time, pull that ballot aside for scrutiny and adjudication in real time. And guess what? When we used to do hand counting back in the day, the results were in within a day. Now, with the machines, it takes as long as it takes to get the results they're looking for, apparently. So when you tell me it speeds it up and makes it more reliable, I'm like, no. And anything that's electronic can be infiltrated. Computers can be hacked.
No. You've got it all wrong, Andy.
Let's go back to paper ballots. It's a very easy solution. Then the next one is, at the party level, we need to have honest primaries, and we need to change the election code so it's not so hard to get on a ballot in the first place to run in a primary. You can't imagine the difficulty it is with the petition process to get on the ballot in the first place. I helped a candidate running for Senate as a Republican. I tried to help her. We couldn't. Her name was Tomasetti. Very nice young lady, didn't stand a snowball's chance, but she deserved the opportunity. And don't you know that the McCormick people came down on her like a ton of bricks, and we ended up losing because she was a few petition signatures away from making it onto the ballot. We need to change that process.
So what can the viewers do and people like myself, individuals, to initiate that change? It's not going to happen overnight, like Alante said. What's the first step to start that change that everyone can do?
Refuse to participate in the corrupt system and make sure that those in power understand that they either give us the kind of election system that the Constitution and the Pennsylvania Constitution call for, the United States and the Pennsylvania, or we're withdrawing our permission and our support. And if you say, well, if you're not voting for someone, your vote doesn't count. Guess what? Your vote doesn't count now. Andy just said it. We don't get to pick the primary candidate, and we don't get to pick the candidate that's going to win in the general, and we have the magician's choice. So I'm done voting for the least worst.
I got a rebuttal to this, and then we got about maybe 5 minutes
Well, one
left.
thing I wanted to say, let me jump in first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Andy said that that these machines can be manipulated.
Right.
What evidence do you have of that, counselor?
Yeah.
I have been told that the tabulator machines is the only computer in the entire history of mankind that cannot be manipulated or programmed.
Yeah.
That's right.
The only one.
That's right. And if you believe that, then I have a bridge in Brooklyn.
And guess what? We don't get to hand count the things that they scan through the machine.
There's no
to make
need.
sure that what the ticker tape sells us.
First of all, do you even have standing?
Real.
Do you even have standing?
I don't know if I've ever had standing.
Well, then why are you questioning this? No, you know how many cases got thrown out of court for lack of standing, which is the ultimate. It's nonsense. I mean, if we don't have standing as voters, who does? And when do you get the standing to bring something forth? And when is it that this is another thing for a takeaway. We don't have a justice system in this country anymore. We have a just is system. When there's justice, it is a coincidence. There's a lot of good judges out there. I encountered one over this weekend that I needed to get something done for an incarcerated client who needed to be released on bail, and there was a contradictory bail condition, and I got a judge to reach out to me yesterday, and we made it happen. There are, I think, most judges, I still want to say this, most judges in a non-political framework try to do the right thing. Once politics comes in, my level of confidence diminishes.
Okay, so all right, great. I love this. Right, we got about 5 minutes left. So this is what I want to do, guys. This will be we're coming back again. We need about 2 or 3 more episodes because we didn't even. There's so much more to talk about. I want to rebuttal something you said. I want to give it to Selma. Then I want to close it out. So my quick rebuttal to this is that I understand your apathy of saying that. I mean, that's of course, your choice, your God-given choice, and your constitutional choice to not participate, right? I want to tell viewers that for the first time in 2024, it was a candidate that made somebody believe. And it wasn't just Republicans that got him into office. It took Democrats, it took independents, and it took Republicans to get him into office. Why? Because this was the first person that actually spoke about the issues. He didn't run as a soft Democrat or somebody who didn't want to make the left mad. He said that I was going to secure that border. I was going to get the men out of women's sports. He said that I was going to get the manufacturing companies. We're going to fix these trade imbalances. He said so many things, and it was, no tax on overtime, no tax. We're going to Social Security, all of these great things that people really believed in. So I believe that if we had real candidates that stood for some things, and we do, sometimes we got candidates, we spoke about why they lose or why they can't even get on the ballot. Yeah. And so it's a dance. It's not just one thing of how we're going to win elections or how we're going to overcome the fraud. It is a lot of different things. And so he made it so big to rig. He got people in Philadelphia alone. We talk about how it's such a blue and such a Marxist place, right? In Philadelphia alone, we had the highest average of black male voters in the entire country. The average in the country was 21% that voted for Trump. In Philadelphia, it was 26%. So you cannot tell me that it cannot be done. So many Latino men came to so many different demographics is my point of why he did that. And so when you got candidates that listen to consultants instead of listening to we the people, when the millions of dollars that go to Scott Pressler for the bullshit mail-in ballots or these consultants. And so you have candidates that are told, you don't got to spend that much time in the Southeast. You hit Philadelphia maybe once or twice towards the end of the election, and that'll be okay. Focus the rest of your time to run up the red parts of the state, just in Pennsylvania alone. And President Trump, he did the total opposite thing. He said, I'm going to Philadelphia in 2024 in the summer. He came to the Leah-Core Center, a place he could not. They said, you can't win there. Why are you going there? He went against the playbook. He went into deep blue Philadelphia, said, F you, I'm going to go speak to them. I already know I got them over there. I need to go talk to them. I want to see if Stacey Garrity is going to come and spend a time in Philly to talk about the real issues. I want to see if these other candidates is going to run in 2026 is going to come to Chester, Monco, Bucks, Delco, and spend time here and really fight and stand for something. I want to say this before I give it to Selma, then I'm going to close it out. I'm going to give you a quick example. Right now that people are pointing out, because the reason why I'm talking about Stacey Garrity, because she's running for governor and is coming up in 2026. We are pro-life over here on the side of the fence, but she got interviewed recently. And they asked her, her stance on this pro-life thing. And she said that I'm going to refer to the laws that's on the books. I'll support that. When in the past, she's been rah-rah super pro-life. And I guess she wanted to try to make a distance between herself and the other person who ran, Doug Mastriano, a couple years before. But a lot of people, well, you're looking a little wishy. Are you going to speak about the issue? Because this is not going away. You got people who really care about this stuff, right? And so I just wanted to give that quick example. If you are a candidate that speaks about the issues and drives voters out, people will come out, whether you're independent, whether you're Democrat, and whether you're Republican. And so, Selma, I wanted to give it to you before I end it.
Appreciate it. First and foremost, no one speaks for me. I speak for myself. This is what conversation's about. Right. I don't agree entirely with any of these people, and if I did, I'd be concerned I was a sheep. Right. The one thing you can do, you have the right to do whatever you want, participate, not participate, be unapologetically loud. Be a wolf and not in sheep's clothing. But when you encounter another wolf who may disagree with you, you need to be kind. You need to be gracious. You need to give them that grace and opportunity. Because when the wolves kill each other, sheep are all what we have, and they want sheep. Be loud. Be the squeaky wheel. Get the oil. But you cannot by any means do it when you meet someone with the utmost disrespect and thought that they're lesser than you. We are not each other's enemies. It is not Republican versus Democrats. It is not anyone versus each other. We are Americans. We need to stop referring to each other as enemies, and we need to have this conversation. This platform is what we need, what we so desperately crave for. Why? Because you have people up there in the mass medias saying whatever they want, because guess who owns all the productions and what?
There are 6 companies that own them all.
And let's say Mr. Maxwell owns 6 British production companies when he exited Mossad. Now, exited is a tangent. But regardless of the fact, I'm open to discourse. I don't hate anyone, and I doubt anyone here does too. People join people. But when those people are within organizations that have corrupt systems, we are questioning those systems in place. I want everyone, including you, to prosper. But I'm not going to give you a handout, because the more that I am taken from and giving it to who wants it, the less ambition I should have or incentive to have that ambition. Because why am I working day and night, nose to the grindstone? I have to work tonight, by the way. Like I work 9 to 5, but I work overtime because I have to. I put all my all into it as a first-generation American. But when I see people who generationally do not want to succeed, how can I not get upset? How can I not say that this is some kind of corruption? Why do we have tens of millions of people relying on the government to fund their livelihood? There is questions at hand that we need to ask, and it's not hating towards anyone. Whatever media wants to paint, they can paint. But in all utter truth, just talk. Have that question and be the squeaky wheel and be the wolf. Be unapologetically confident. But if you cannot confidently defend your stance, then you are a sheep, and you need to go back to your computer, look up on some unbiased sources, like mentioned with Andy, also Reuters, Politico, but also take it with a grain of salt. When you find one fact, it can trickle into a domino effect of more. Do not believe everything firsthand. That's all I have to say.
That's beautiful. Guys, both Andys, I want to thank you guys. And this, we're coming back. This was great conversation. I agree with a lot what you guys said. I had, of course, like Selma said, like an opposing opinion, or just thought. I want people to think. You hear this side and you hear this side. All right, now you come to your own conclusion. That's your right to do. And so it was great conversation. Like, I love it. I appreciate it. I'm humbled by it. I never in my wildest dreams thought like I'd be sitting here with brilliant people like this having these great conversations, right?
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So
Thank
thank
you.
you guys for coming. Yeah, we're going to do this again very soon, and we're going to dive deeper into this. And so, guys, and listen, Selma, thank you for joining me again. Listen, this is my new co-host right here. All right. So she's awesome. She's a rock star. Guys, I need everybody to once again like, subscribe, share. This is What You Scared to Say podcast, episode 39, and we'll be back.